Spiritual Series podcast, and we are on, I think, episode 14. We're back with Supriya Chechi, and we're going to discuss the seventh chapter of the Gita, which is one of the crucial parts of the Gita where they talk in the 15th verse. And let's continue. Can you see the screen, Supriya Chechi?
I can see your
Oh,
database screen also. Okay,
okay,
thank you.
perfect.
Thank you, Kanan. I'm very happy to be doing this podcast and grateful
No
that
problem.
you're making time for this despite all your hectic other moral duties and obligations and everything. Yeah, so I'm happy, and yeah, we can start with verse 14 after doing a quick recap of what we've covered in this chapter, crucial chapter 7 until now. So Hare Krishna and Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare
Okay,
Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhu.
all right. Now a quick recap, just re-emphasizing that the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita were about Karma Yoga,
Hmm.
and they are considered, they are compared to the outer cover of a book. The next 6 chapters, that is chapter 7 to chapter, it will go on till chapter 12, is really the book, the contents, the real contents. If you take the similar analogy of a book, the central portion, crucial, it's the real meat of the Gita because it's about bhakti. And the last 6 chapters, going from chapter 13 to chapter 18, are like the outer covering of a book because they give you gyan. Not so much jnana yoga, but they're going to give you more and more knowledge about how the world is set up and where we stand in the big scheme of things and how to negotiate this material world. Like the analogy of a book, you also have the analogy of a jewel box, that the outer covering and then the inner cover, the covering below the bottom, and inside are the real jewels. So this section, the middle section of the Bhagavad Gita, running from chapter 7 to 12, and now we've started with chapter 7, are really where the actual jewels are hidden. Now, in this chapter, which we've covered the first 13 verses, and what we heard so far is the very first verse in the purport. We were told about how the process starts with hearing or shravan, that it all starts with hearing some stuff that literally stops you in your tracks and makes you think and makes you inquire more and more. So the process starts with shravan or hearing. So many people will tell you, someone asked me a question, someone said something that really kind of shook me, or I heard this lovely brilliant class, or I watched this 2-minute video which made this point. So it starts with the ears, and
Hmm.
if the human ear is not used for hearing higher matters or spiritual matters, it's compared in the Bhagavatam, which you must have come across because you've been actively reading the Bhagavatam, like dead snake holes, like just 2 holes here on either side of our face, which are fit for snakes to live in. If the ears are not really used for their proper purpose, considering that we've got this high human birth to hear about the Lord and to hear about higher spiritual matters. So the process starts with Shravan, and by hearing and hearing and hearing and going through different stages, what happens is the hard knot of affection in the heart gets loosened, and that is misguided and misplaced material affection which competes with our affection for the Lord. The
Hmm.
affection for the Lord should actually keep deepening, and our affection for our material connections, no doubt they're there and they're valuable. They act as a buffer when you get hit hard by this material world. But we have to see things. It's like a fine a rope that you're walking. That it's a fine line. That you can artificially cut those material connections. They just got hurt and misery, and they make us very vulnerable. But we should just be able to see that over the years, as we grow and as our knowledge increases, they are loosening. How are they loosening? Doesn't mean that literally we slam the door shut in the face of relatives who want to see us. It means that we are less affected by what they do when they try to harm us, and maybe we are less dependent on them, and we are dependent more on the Supreme Lord Himself. And we are more thoughtful and introspective about the bigger picture in every situation, and we try to see what is Krishna trying to do in this situation. Why is he
There's,
putting me through
there's
this?
There's one you must have heard of this example of in this non-dualist and as well as in like in the Buddhist circles, they have
Yeah.
this example of the snake and the rope. Have you heard of that?
Ah, yes, yes. Yeah, I
That
know.
where the person he sees this thing lying on the ground.
Yeah,
It's actually a rope, but he thinks it's a snake.
that's right.
So the so he's
Avoids it.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, he avoids it. So but but that's the thing of like, in a sense Maya, which is like it's an illusion basically, like,
yeah.
and the fear is misplaced. It's a misplaced fear. Like, what do
That's
you
a
think of that?
Yeah, that's a very good analogy, Kanan, because the rope has actually been given to him to clutch at to help save
Hmm.
himself. But he mistakes it as something to be avoided and frightened of, and he loses that chance. So, in that sense, it's a good analogy. And there's also this other analogy given, which makes the rounds of social media from time to time, of someone who thought he was surrendered to a guru or to the Lord, and he's at the edge of a cliff. And that guru, in sometimes some versions, it's a God himself who is saying, "It's okay, just trust in me and jump, trust in me and jump." But he doesn't have that trust, or he's not gone through a process where that trust is well placed and formed. So he just doesn't trust, and he hangs there and freezes to death.
Or
And
there's
what actually happens is,
yeah, continue. Yeah.
it's not such a high cliff. It wasn't such, so there wasn't so much of a distance between where he was hanging and where he would have landed. So this is often our situation, because we've not been through a bona fide process that teaches us to assess situations properly, guided of course from inside and from outside by our well-wishers. We mistake, as you said, when a rope is being put out to help us, we think it's a snake and we refuse to hold it or to accept the
Hmm.
instruction or accept the advice.
There's actually I don't know if you've heard this in this story of Adi Shankaracharya,
Yeah,
when when he leaves the house and he's traveling and all that, he's
yeah,
trying to find somebody, like he's trying to find somebody that he can like debate with, right? So I
right.
don't know the name of that person, but
Uh-huh.
there's this like famous name that's been told that, this is a very famous person or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's a sage or whatever, like he's very famous and all that, and like he tries to go there, and then they talk about his story where there's this thing where like people ridicule the sage and tell him that, I think he was basically a believer in God,
Okay.
and they kind of ridicule him and say that, where's your God, where's your God, if you have faith in, where's your faith in God, and show
Yeah.
show us your faith in God, whatever. So he's like, so like there's this, when you told me that analogy of like jumping from that cliff, no, it's
Yeah.
exactly what happens to him, where he jumps from like, he's like, I will show you, like, God exists, in this, and like as he's jumping, like
Yeah.
uh, like he jumps, and this very tall cliff, like really tall. If like, say a normal person would die, but then
Right.
he jumps, and then he survives actually. But the
Okay.
problem is that he survives a lot of broken bones. But it's a very
Right.
tall. If any normal person would die, but he survives
Right.
a lot of broken. So I think he was like wondering what happened. Like, I thought I trusted God and all that stuff, and He didn't
Okay.
protect me. In this situation and all that.
Uh-huh.
So I think some other sage came and told him that it's yeah, God is true, but when you jump, or I think God came in his dream or something like that, and he told
Uh,
him that when I have full faith in you and you can trust me, but when you jumped, you had a little bit of doubt, and that little bit
I
of doubt,
see.
because of that, you had all these broken bones or whatever and all that stuff.
Okay. Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. So it's like even when you jump, you have full faith that God will protect you, and if he had
Okay.
full faith, then he would have survived basically in
Okay.
that.
Got it.
So that story is in that Adi Shankaracharya's pastime or whatever. But I remember
Okay.
hearing it from somewhere when you had said that
Okay.
analogy of the mountain and all that. Yeah,
All
that
right.
cliff.
Thank you. So that's surrender. What we are talking about when we say
Yeah,
forgive,
surrender.
surrender,
Uh,
and surrender. We are going to hear in a later part of this same class, this podcast, when we discuss the 14th verse. Or surrender is always active. It's not something passive. like you've
Hmm.
just pointed out in that analogy you shared, because surrender means that you make one or many choices, situation after situation. And surrender can take many forms. Draupadi made a choice, but it appears externally passive. She just threw out her hands and said, "Oh Krishna, I'm depending on you," when she was being disrobed in public. Arjuna surrendered, but he was externally not passive at all. Basically, he started shooting arrows at his enemies. But both were surrendering in the sense that they were accepting the instruction of Krishna. Uh, Draupadi, not in a direct way, but basically she remembered some interaction she'd had with Krishna in the past and decided this is the only person to turn to, despite having 5 husbands.
Hmm.
Arjuna went through a long process, as we are seeing here, of doubting and debating and being uncertain. But finally, he also surrenders to the instructions of Krishna, picks up his bow, and starts fighting. So, surrender is always something active, it is not just passive, and it's active internally. Externally, Draupadi looked passive and helpless. In Arjuna's case, it was active externally and internally. But the real issue is what happens internally, because surrender is active. It's an active process in the sense that we consciously and deliberately make a choice. We make a choice that takes us closer to Krishna, and we avoid a choice that's going to take us further away. So surrender, in these stories that circulate, it seems as if it's just like at one shot, jump from the cliff or don't jump, etc. The stories have a purpose because they are meant to make us focus on this point. But in reality, the process consists of many steps. It's rarely ever achieved by ordinary people like you and me in one shot. It's a process. Like Arjuna went through a process of doubting despite being Krishna's cousin and close friend. And so also with Draupadi, it took some time finally to turn like this. But there is a whole process, and in which in different situations we keep making clear choices. Sometimes we fumble and we fall because we know we've done the wrong thing, we said or decided. Then you have to try to retrieve the situation. That's also a great skill one needs in life. You did
Hmm.
something that obviously completely backfired, or but then okay, keep calm, stay calm, and just go and try to retrieve that situation. It's a great skill in life to be able to retrieve situations that are gone hopelessly wrong, either by your doings or the doings of others who were well intentioned but were misguided, or they are in avidya, ignorance, or you got good bad guidance, or else you trusted the wrong people. Most of the time our material lives are, we are, if you steep to an average person, this is Kali Yuga, for God's sake. Hardly anybody's life goes well, goes properly in a meaningful way. Highly superficial way people's lives when they're going like, fantastically big salary, party, good looks, and so on. That's not
Hmm.
what I mean. So surrender is a process. It's also an active process, and fundamentally, if you boil it down to its essence, it consists of the choices we make, and we'll hear
Hmm.
more about that later. So just still continuing that quick recap of this
Yeah, yeah.
first few verses of the Bhagavad of the chapter 7. As we said, the process starts with Shravan. Ears that don't hear anything about the Lord are compared to just snake holes, useless in that sense.
Hmm.
Then we go on to hear Krishna telling us how he gives the analogy of a string of pearls, where the string is not visible and we just see the beauty of the pearls, but without the string the pearls can't hang in that wonderful arrangement. And that is meant to show, tell us that everything rests upon him. And in case we still don't get it, or Arjuna still doesn't get it, he goes on to give many examples of how he's all pervasive. He's in everything and everywhere. He is the taste of water and so on. He is the light of the sun and the moon, and he is the strength of those who won't misuse that strength to exploit and harm others. He is penance in ascetics. He is the fragrance of the earth. Basically, it means that active ingredient or the essence of something, he is there. Basically, making this point for those who are still having doubts about his greatness, and he's all he's that the fact that he's omniscient and omnipotent. This is to show that he's all pervasive. He's everywhere. And having said all that, there is like a warning or a rider that this is actually comes up early in this chapter in verse 3, that out of many thousands of men only one even strives for this perfection, and out of those who strive for perfection, hardly one knows me in truth, because they get misguided. And even the great demigods, you gave an example last time of Brahma, the Brahma Vimohana Leela. Excuse me, Shiva gets bewildered in the Mohini Murti episode of the Churning of the Milky Ocean. So, if even they are bewildered, then what to speak of us? And this is a crucial point, because this verse 14 is going to talk about what is it that causes our bewilderment. It's the three modes. They really act as, we use different analogies to discuss it. So, having said this much, we can straight away jump ahead and go on to verse 13 and 14.
This one, right?
Yeah, verse 13, deluded by the three modes.
Deluded by the three modes, the whole world does not know me, who am
Yeah,
above the modes and inexhaustible.
yeah, deluded by the three modes, this passion, ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above. Meaning he is above the modes, though he controls the modes like someone, like a puppeteer with the three strings in his hand, and but he is above the modes and is inexhaustible. He never tires of controlling and guiding. So here in the purport, do you want to read the purport, please? At least a portion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. The whole world is enchanted by the three modes of material nature. Those who are bewildered by these three modes cannot understand the transcendental that transcendental to this material nature is the Supreme Lord Krishna.
yeah,
Every living entity under the influence of material nature has a particular type of body and a particular type of psychological and biological activities accordingly. There
yeah,
are four classes of men functioning in the three material modes of nature. Those who are purely in the mode of goodness are called Brahmanas. Those who are purely in the mode of passion are called Kshatriyas. Those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance are called Vaishyas. And those who are completely in ignorance are called Shudras. And those who are less than that are animals or animal life. However, these designations are not permanent. I
and
may
not
be
permanent.
either a
Yeah,
I may be either a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya, or whatever. In any case, this life is temporary. But although life is temporary and we do not know what we are going to be in the next life, by the spell of this illusory energy, we consider ourselves in terms of this bodily conception of life. And we thus think that we are American, Indian, Russian, or Brahmana, Hindu, Muslim, etc. And if we become entangled with the modes of material nature, then we forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is behind all these modes. So, Lord Krishna says that living entities deluded by these three modes of nature do not understand that behind the material background is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
okay.
Ah,
Now just
um,
stop here, because why he is giving us information in the purport about Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra is so that, given the qualities which will be described later in chapter 14 and chapter 18, we can start to recognize our nature. At least there is a shadow of these qualities in us. Often we are mixed, or some one quality is more prominent. And unless we know
there's
ourselves,
a
yeah, go
there's
on.
actually in Canto. I'm actually studying the Canto 11 now in the Bhagavatam.
Okay,
So in Canto 11, there is a chapter on the material modes
yeah,
where they talk about the material modes, but then they also talk about that some people have combinations of all three. So
sure,
like there's like there's good. It's like not like there are people who are like who do things that are on like person who's religious is in the mode of goodness. A person who's like in who's striving for like some kind of economic um, sort of economic advancement or whatever is in the mode of passion,
correct,
and person who's driven by like who's after sense desires and sense pleasures are in the mode of ignorance. And
right,
so these three are like the frameworks of the goodness, passion, ignorance, and within these three, which is
yeah,
religiosity, economic advancement, and sense pleasures, people are a mixture of these three basically. that's what
correct, yeah.
that's what it's
Actually, that since you brought up this point about economic prosperity, religious principles, and finally getting liberation and sense pleasure and liberation, these four things you mentioned in
Hmm.
common parlance, in common religious speeches, just generally making people aware what the Vedas recommend. The majority section of the major section of the Vedas It is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. You must have heard these four
Yeah,
terms.
yeah. Dharma,
Yeah.
Artha, Kama, Moksha.
Idea being that how you navigate through these four. Idea being that you basically do all your duties properly and you do your karma and you're
Artha,
practicing karma yoga,
Artha,
you will be
Artha was
prosperous. Yeah, the demigods, you worship the demigods, they will reward you by prosperity. Artha basically means a meaningful
mhm.
life, a prosperous life. With that prosperous life, what do? You are still following the dharmic principles and you get yourself a wife or a husband, and you then enjoy sense pleasure in a way that is licensed by society. You are still not doing anything to anger the gods, and you have children and your prosperity increases because now you can use your prosperity to award them with different facilities. So that's artha. After artha comes kama, which is where it is after the economic prosperity, and you are well positioned to basically enjoy sense pleasure in a licensed way, not in the way it's done today. So that dharma, artha, kama. And when you're done with all this, in old age, you start focusing on moksha or liberation or how to achieve it. And for this, some quick suggestions are given, like, go to Kashi and live there, give up eating your favorite fruit, try and die in Kashi. This is the parameters within which traditional religiosity functions, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So the major section of the Vedas talks about this because the majority of people are happy with this very slow process. That doesn't mean that at the end of this life they're going to get moksha. They just, they come back again and again in the cycle of life, of birth and death. But because what the Vedas don't tell this majority that really laps up and gobbles up this licensed dharma, artha, kama, moksha path, is that the world is set up as a jail for us, and all of us are trapped inside the jail. So an intelligent person tries to find a way that basically gets us out of the jail. Maya Devi has the key to the jail, and she's basically working. Maya Devi, in other words, material nature, and the facilities that material nature gives us, is working under the clear instructions of the Supreme Lord. So an intelligent person is not going to be just happy to be in a VIP cell of the jail. For example, somebody may be in a posh house with lots of gold and money and so on, but still he is inside that jail. He's just in a gilded part of the jail. The same misery that and tragedies that strike average, not such rich or even poor people happens to him. The same losses, the same cheating, the same criminal mentality can come into him also because of power. He thinks he can, and he's creating so much bad reaction for himself.
That's all like in the mode of ignorance, basically. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like, hmm.
Yeah, he's
Because
happy. Go on.
because in
Yeah,
that, like they were saying that in like in the mode of ignorance, you have things like basically like one thing which I think is common for most people in today's age is like because obviously like I mean not everybody is like a murderer or does all
sure,
these things,
sure.
but one of the common things that I think more all of us like are in the mode of which is like laziness and maybe sleep, like that's
Sure, sure.
also part of the mode
Ignorance.
of ignorance. So like so that comes in that. So like a lot of us are like, especially me, sometimes I'm not like I'll sleep sometime extra or I'll like we'll sometimes feel lazy or whatever, but at the same time like I do my morning routine where I do my prayers and I do like that I do that. I in the end in the day also whenever I get the time I'll read the Bhagavatam or I'll most of
Sure,
the time
sure.
listen to things that I listen to like spiritual talks and I'll listen to these things. So that's
Right.
all in the that's all like probably in the mode of goodness. But
Definitely,
also
definitely.
there's also this thing, this aspect of like, okay, I need to work and get money and I need to like, I need to do something
Sure,
that comes maybe in the mode of passion. So it's
sure,
like, they're all like a mixture of all things, basically. We're
sure.
not, none of us are,
Absolutely. Absolutely. All of us are a mixture of all these things, and in certain parts, in periods of our life or in certain parts of the day, one dominates more than the other. Like you just described so nicely how your day goes. And here, why this information has been given in the verse we just looked at about Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra is because, in terms of our inclination, one will be more pronounced. So we really need, if it is one of the better ones, one of the higher modes, we need to derive a lot of confidence from that. And basically we need to engage in that activity more and more, and not just engage in that activity, learn to think and function like a brahmana. It doesn't mean just
Uh,
wearing
I
yeah, go
I
on.
have a doubt actually. What do you think? Like, do you think somebody can be in the mode of goodness without realizing that they're in the mode of goodness?
Sure, because if they don't have the information or the knowledge, how are they even going to know? But
But
more
also,
dangerous. Yeah, go on.
hmm. But also like, but in the same, if somebody doesn't know that they're in the mode of goodness, does does that framework will that framework apply to them if they're not in the mode of passion or ignorance at the same time? Like,
This is, you put your finger on it, because the person who is in the mode of goodness but is not even aware what the modes are, or that he or she is in the mode of goodness, the big danger is that means he doesn't have the knowledge of how it works. So he can easily, like you just correctly pointed out, just get pulled down into the mode of passion and ignorance, and in that way he's depleting his stock of pious credit of goodness, is
hmm.
depleting it. So it's very important to know and to share this knowledge with others in a way that actually captures their interest. Because even if we can't get it right overnight, we can cultivate and watch what's happening. Because one common pitfall for those in the mode of goodness is that when we come to chapter 14, not verse in this chapter, but chapter 14, it brilliantly analyzes two things. One is that these three modes are always in competition with each other. Now, where are they competing? Naturally, in the space around us and within ourselves. And that the drawback in the mode of goodness is that the mode of goodness basically means the person is fulfilled, feels a sense of, gradually a sense of superiority comes in, because he's getting things right. He's not doing anything wrong. He's not harming anybody. He is he is very conscientious. Sorry, please excuse me. Just put
Yeah,
this
yeah,
on.
sure.
Hello. Ah, ഇപ്പൊ ഞാൻ അല്ല, ഉച്ചയ്ക്ക് വരുമോ? ഇപ്പൊ ഇവിടെ ഞാൻ ഇന്നലെ പറഞ്ഞിരുന്നു, ഇവിടെ ഞാൻ ക്ലാസ് എടുക്കുന്നു ഈ മുറിയിൽ, പോഡ്കാസ്റ്റ് ആണ്. അതുകൊണ്ട് ഒരു 2 മണി കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് വരുമോ? ആ അല്ലേ, 2 മണി കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട്, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ തിങ്കളാഴ്ച രാവിലെ. ഗോൾഫ് ലിങ്സ് റോഡ്, സ്കൈലക്സ്. ഗോൾഫ് ലിങ്സ് റോഡ് അറിയാമോ? അല്ല, ഗോൾഫ് ലിങ്സ് റോഡിൽ ശാരദ മാർക്കറ്റിൽ വന്നിട്ടുണ്ടോ? ഗോൾഫ് ലിങ്സ് റോഡില് ആ റോഡ് അറിയാമോ? അപ്പൊ അവിടെ ശാരദ മാധവൻ ഫ്ലാറ്റ്സിൽ വന്നിട്ടുണ്ടോ? ഓക്കെ, അപ്പൊ ഗോൾഫ് ലിങ്സ് റോഡില് ഒരു കാര്യം ചെയ്യണേ, ഇത് പോഡ്കാസ്റ്റ് മിഡിലാണ്, അത് റെക്കോർഡാവും ഞാൻ സംസാരിക്കുന്നത്. നിങ്ങൾ വരണം മുമ്പേ ഒരു മണിക്ക്, 1:30-2 മണിക്ക് വിളിച്ചാൽ ഞാൻ ഡീറ്റെയിൽസ് തരുന്നുണ്ട്. ഓക്കെ, അത് മതി, അത് മതി. താങ്ക് യു. All right, sorry about that. Yeah.
No, no problem.
Okay, no. So what we were talking about is that the pitfall for the mode of goodness is that a person who's in the mode of goodness, unless he knows how the modes work and unless he's alert to what's happening, he or she will develop a sense of fulfillment, complacency, that he or she is getting everything right, not doing anything wrong, conscientious, duty conscious, God fearing, clean, regulated. What can be better? So a sense of superiority comes in, and that sense of superiority immediately, slowly, gradually, or even quickly slides into the mode of passion and pulls the person down. You know how there is this saying, pride comes before a fall?
Mm.
So, because actually the mode of goodness, when I say a sense of superiority sets in, I really mean that a sense of pride develops.
This is a
Because,
story of that story. Forgot the name. It's in the sixth canto,
yeah,
where forgot the name of that demigod. But
yeah,
he he's reached this spiritual level where he's already reached that level of Vaikuntha, or that place, and
right.
he's like going around in his aircraft, and then he sees
Uh-huh.
Shiva and Parvati there, and
Yes. He
he
laughs.
laughs and everything, and but Shiva smiles because he knows that what he why he's laughing, and there is some truth in that or something. And Parvati
Mm,
doesn't like it and he curses, but but the thing is that Shiva tells her that see, he's so powerful that he can counteract the curse, but
right.
he accepts the curse. He's like, no, I will accept it. I've been cursed, I'll accept it. So he's supposed to be born as a demon, but
Mm,
there's like a little bit of pride that comes in, and then he's in such a he's in the level where he's already reached
right,
Vaikuntha.
right.
He's already devoted to Vishnu and all that. But
Yeah.
he's because of this curse, he can counteract it, but he doesn't. So he uh, willingly gets reborn as a demon or whatever. So that
Mm,
what's the name of that person again?
I'm
Uh,
trying, yeah, I'm trying to remember the particular name of that demon, but I know this pastime that Shiva and Parvati are in a loving in a loving romantic.
Chitraketu. Chitraketu.
Correct, correct. I think it is Chitraketu. Good thing you brought up this point because this is a clear
Yeah.
example of a demigod who dared to laugh at Lord Shiva and
But
his
Shiva, but Shiva, he doesn't take it at all seriously. He realizes that there is some truth in that, and then in that same Bhagavatam chapter, he says that look at the like after he listens to what Chitraketu says,
yeah,
he has a lot of awe and reverence for Chitraketu. He says, look at the Vaishnavas. The Vaishnavas are people who are basically always very in the mode of goodness or always acting in the correct way, and they
yeah,
being the devotees of Vishnu, and he's praising, and he's like those people who are in the highest, who are always situated in the in the mind of always situated in the thought of constantly thinking of
Lord, yeah, yeah.
supreme personality godhead will always attain this level of it. But it's like if you think about it, somebody like Shiva is already on that level, like he's already non-different to everything basically, and he
But
doesn't care. But
it's very good again that you brought up the second point, the secondary point in this whole pastime or episode, because Lord Shiva is considered the highest of all the Vaishnavas, because it is the nature of a Vaishnava also to show the proper etiquette. And what Lord Shiva is doing is to show that proper etiquette, to not take not take offense, to see the good even in the on the side, in those
with
who are
others,
yeah, in others who may have unknowingly tried to harm him or tried to be hostile to him. So therefore, Lord Shiva is given considered the greatest Vaishnava. And if you ever get to go to West Bengal and to that Mayapur region, there's an extraordinary Shiva Linga. It is in the river bed and it goes underwater during the floods. And I think recently they tried to remove it and bring it to some safer point. It's what's extraordinary is apparently when Lord Shiva heard that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had appeared in this material world and in that part of India in West Bengal, he's supposed to have tried to come very fast to watch the pastimes. And we are talking of, I mean, like from the celestial planets down here. And Brahma, seeing his enthusiasm, gave him his swan, the swan carrier. So there is Lord Shiva coming in a swan carrier, and the name of this particular Shiva site, it's very unusual. I will give you the details after the class, and I will send you photos. And so it is again a fact that is very little known to the mundane religious people, that Lord Shiva, whom they see as opposed to Vaishnavism, and there is Shaivism and there is Vaishnavism, that if you, like you yourself pointed out from this particular episode involving Chitraketu, Lord Shiva is so elevated and so renounced and so much in awe of, or so much willing to learn and be corrected by Vishnu, as in the case of the Mohini Murti, Lord Vishnu, as in the case of the Mohini Murti episode, where Lord Shiva, Vishnu even manages to bewilder Lord Shiva, and then even then Lord Shiva doesn't get upset. He accepts it as gratitude. So there's a very unusual relationship between Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu, which is lost on the mundanely religious people. They really think as two opposing groups. And why do we have to give up Shiva worship in order to worship Krishna? It doesn't
in
really
uh,
work like that.
in reality, Shiva is constantly worshipping Vishnu, and he's constantly worshipping the supreme personality of Godhead, and he's not thinking like in terms of oh, like people are not worshipping me. He's like, I'm worshipping the supreme God. I don't need, if you're worshipping me, you're worshipping him. You know, you worship him directly also is enough. But if you're worshiping me, fine, but that worship is going to go to him basically. I'm
Right.
worshipping, like I'm worshipping him because I'm worshipping him in such a way that the people who worship me get his blessings, so that everybody is happy. So
And
that's the state in which Shiva is in. But most
super,
people, like, they have this think that, he's different or he's in a different space or whatever and all that. But yeah.
and it is also said that those who are somehow managed to please Lord Shiva, he out of his kindness and compassion takes pity on them. If they are directing their worship to Lord Shiva, he will actually direct that worship towards Vishnu or Krishna. And he also is known to have told Parvati Devi that when Parvati is asking for guidance, how to get liberation, moksha, etc. So he is said to have, and this is a quote from the Upanishads. It's been inserted into one of our Bhagavad Gita purports here, that he says Mukti Pradata Vishnu Eva a Samshaya. I may be missing out on one word, but means the giver of Mukti is Vishnu. There is no doubt about it. In other words, he's actually guiding his consort Parvati and saying, don't try and turn to me to get that Mukti. Only Vishnu is able to give it. Therefore, as I just said a few moments ago, it is said that those who please Vishnu, sorry, those who please Lord Shiva are actually somehow like taken by the hand and directed towards something happens in their life and they move on effortlessly. And I can vouch for this that in my adult life, I was kind of no adult, meaning like say beyond the age of 15 up to 20, 24, 25. I knew only Lord Shiva. Somehow he appealed to me, as I've said before in this podcast, because he was renounced and he really didn't care a hoot about what the world thought, etc. I there was that, and that was the prominent worship in my house because my mother would keep it up. She'd been given a Shiva photo, and she would do her Monday Vrata and everything. Go and put Bilva Patta on a Shivaling in wherever we were posted in Delhi, in North India, and in whichever house we were, because we moved house at least 7 times. She would unfailingly go and put Bilva Patta from a nearby tree on the linga. So I was aware of Lord Shiva. And when I went abroad, I remember I carried a little photo of Lord Shiva sitting like an ascetic in deer skin or whatever that skin is, and I had it on my desk. And someone may have given me a Ganapati little deity also, but I cannot say I was ever attracted to Ganapati, ever attracted to Devi, and cannot say at that stage I was aware of Lord Krishna. I wasn't. It's a fact. But somehow, whatever worship I showed in a very unguided and raw and not very aware way, some half-baked stuff, but clearly I had formed some in my hard times abroad with scholarship and money issues and so on. I had obviously developed some genuine feeling for Lord Shiva. And that's how I remember that in my third year, I had to go to Banaras, as I've said before. My parents were not at all happy that I was traveling alone in India, but in Banaras I was put up in the university there. I took help from them to go and see the Kashi Vishwanath temple. I was very moved and saw the ghats and so on. But it is from there actually my Krishna worship started, because as I've narrated, one clerk there just asked me, "Have you read the Bhagavad Gita?" And that stopped me dead in my tracks. It's the Shravan from the ear. Someone
Hmm.
says something, and then I turned to the Bhagavad Gita, and then I turned to Krishna. And when I came back, for me, there was no conflict between not worshipping Lord Shiva anymore. I didn't have to artificially give him up or throw away his photos. I didn't feel scared that now he's going to turn against me because now I am all for Krishna. It's never been like that. It was some kind of very natural and smooth transition. So Shiva is not just the greatest Vaishnava. He actually, like you pointed out, that when devotees try to worship him, after a while he says, "No, go in that direction," and he makes the arrangements. So it's a remarkable arrangement
There's
of
a s-
yeah.
the same thing with, like, with me and Hanuman actually,
Ah,
because with me and Hanuman, like, he I would say that it's because of Hanuman that only that my, like, spiritual life started. Because I started, though I remember, like, I was thinking, okay, like how do I start? I wanted to get into understand more, and for some reason, like I just said, okay, I'm just going to pray to Hanuman, and from there only, like most of the things started from there. I started liking, I mean, I started getting more in touch with Shiva also after that. So getting more in touch with, then obviously now in this stage, like Krishna is
Yeah.
like, I take him as supreme personality of Godhead, but I always have this like I don't know, this soft spot or something for Hanuman for some
Mm,
reason. Like there's this, so every day like morning, like I'll say like two verses of the Hanuman Chalisa, which is like let's say Shri Guru Charana Saroj Raj Nij Man Mukuru Sudari Bharanav Raghubar Bimal Jasu Jodaya Kapalachari
mhm,
बुद्धिहीन तनु जानिके सुमिरो पवन कुमार बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि हरहु कलेश विकार.
mhm.
So in that he talks
So
about,
please, do you, yeah, the paraphrase the meaning, please, just at least roughly
so
what you
like
understand.
yeah, so I mean I don't know the exact this thing, but it's like what it says is that um it's describing like, oh, Hanuman, the son of Vayu, or
Yeah,
basically
Vayuputra.
it's like it's praising a lot of Hanuman, but then there's this one part where he says like, who's the son of Vayu, who's the ardent devotee of Lord Ram, and that
Mhm.
Lord Ram who has all the qualities of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha,
Okay.
which you mentioned in that. So all that is there. Actually, the better, I don't want to like butcher this thing, because I
Yeah,
always end up this thing. What
yeah,
is
go
it?
on.
I'll just say
Yeah,
the so it's where is that? Yeah.
you're
Yeah,
looking
so
for.
the first part, so Sri Guru Charana Sarojaraj Nijaman, that part, cleansing the mirror in the form of my mind with pollen of this is why I don't remember the full thing, because it's too high class of like
Okay.
cleansing
Yeah.
cleansing the mirror in the form of my mind with the pollen of the lotus feet of the Guru. I describe the unblemished glory of Rama, which bestows the four fruits: Dharma, Artha,
Artha.
Kama, Moksha.
Okay.
And then the next part where he says Buddhi in it, like that knowing my body to be devoid of intelligence, I remember Hanuman, the son of Vayu. Give me strength, intelligence, knowledge, and remove all ailments and impurities.
Hmm. But this is,
So,
it's very good. It's because why it is so good and why you're so fortunate that it is Hanuman you've somehow clicked with, or like you said, you have a soft spot because he represents this dasya bhav. He is always the servant. He is himself a great God, so powerful. He put Shani in his place and he did so many miraculous feats. But he is in Dasya Bhav, which is what we all need to, as Vaishnavas, we all need to cultivate it, and it is so hard to do it. As a Dasa, Hanuman is
hmm,
Dasa of Lord Ram. And is always in this position, in the trio. You see Ram, Lakshman, Sita Devi, you see deities or Vigrahas. He's always there, usually at the base, folded like this, ready to render service. And what you just brought out, cleaning the mirror of my heart with the pollen dust.
cleansing the mirror of my mind with the pollen of the
Mind.
lotus of the
Mm,
Lord. I remember the unblemished glories of Ram, who bestows the four fruits, which is Dharma,
okay.
Artha, Kama, Moksha. And then after the
Okay.
next part is knowing my mind to be devoid of knowledge, intelligence, and wisdom. I remember Hanuman, who the son of Vayu, gives me strength, wisdom, knowledge, etc. Like that. Basically,
But
it's
that's also because it's taking a very humble position that knowing my
yeah.
mind to be devoid of it's completely Vaishnava, the mood of what you are narrating, whatever its source may be.
Hmm.
So it is, yeah, really, these are different arrangements that the Lord makes for us based on something we've done or not done in a past life to bring us closer to Him. And he's telling us, deluded by this. We're talking about now, verse 13. He's We have jumped to verse. Yeah, you were reading from verse 13. So in verse 13, he's saying, deluded by the three modes, the whole world does not know me. Now, how does this delusion take place? If you think of the sun and you see the supreme lord as the sun, and you see that suddenly clouds come and cover the sun, it's not as if there is no sun anymore. but it's just that the clouds are completely blocking our vision of the sun. In the same way, if in this lifetime we are going to great trouble to get to know the Lord better, clearly in previous lifetimes and even in the early part of this life, clouds came like that and completely covered our vision of the sun. So that is how the modes work. The modes are very powerful. They are different analogies are given to try to describe the modes. One is that is three ropes. It's like the three ropes that completely tie us up, and it's hard for us to get out of that tied form. Another is the modes are like filters. That is, one is blue, one is red, one is green, let's say. And the filters, uh, they distort our view of what the reality is in a particular situation. People will go to such extents and harm themselves and even end up dying for all the wrong reasons because one of the modes has really completely captured them. Often you read of someone who agreed to eat 100 ice creams or 200 rasagullas as some kind of competition. These are educated young people with so much knowledge filtering in that they should at least know that there's some harm will come to them because the stomach and the digestive system can't. At least they should. For what? For publicity, for get out of pride, to get power, position, publicity, and to get name and fame. Because if they make it, then they win some big bet. So it's to what extent the modes are so powerful and they are completely deluding us. It's like swindling us and talking of the reality. Whenever these guys agree or say they will accept a bet and eat 100 ice creams, obviously he's not realizing the reality is that he's going to die because the insides frozen up, and he's often just 26, 27, 22 when this happens. All totally absurd. You just have to go to social media to see how the modes are working. Just yesterday someone forwarded me a message. There is this girl in Gujarat who's fixed her wedding for June 11th, and but there is no groom. She's going to marry herself.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that fact.
Yeah, it's just like obviously completely for publicity. She claims she's going to be the
Yeah.
first. She already figured out it's not happened before. She'll make it to the Guinness Book. So for what? I mean, marriage is considered is given importance to in Shastra. It serves the whole purpose. All right, marriages are not working well, and it's hard nowadays to select anyone to get married. That's all true. That doesn't mean that you turn the whole system upside down and make not just a laughing stock, waste everybody's time. Now there'll be a whole lot of people trying to imitate her. Definitely, she will get the karmic reaction. Why the priests in the temple don't have the courage to just tell her, no, nothing doing, we are not going to go through this in this temple? It's because she's obviously agreed to pay them some money. And they also want the publicity. So it blocks us off from what the reality is in any situation. And it's therefore spiritual life keeps telling us how the mind, it can be our best friend, but it can also be our worst enemy. And why does it turn our enemy? Because the lower modes are obviously completely acting like a filter and coloring our vision. And we misjudge situations and do all wrong things. Even small level, I mean, if our vision is not right and you don't put your foot on the right step, you go down and you harm, you break a limb or you hurt yourself. So it's so important for our vision in the real sense, in the deeper sense of the term, to be able to see reality for what it is. And it's the modes that act as a great obstacle. So they're compared to filters, they're compared to ropes, they're compared to clouds that come and block our vision of the sun, which is the Supreme Lord trying to throw his great sunlight on us so that we can see things clearly. It's very important. If someone is but doesn't know, like as I said, he runs the risk of. Oh, sorry, no, that's just my extra speaker. He runs the risk of developing pride, and pride comes before a fall because mode of goodness usually leads to a sense of complacency and so on. Not just that, the Bible, there is a saying, there's a lot in it. It's called the road to what is it? The road to heaven is paved with the road, the path
Go
to
to.
hell is paved with good intentions.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's a thought-provoking statement, because why does someone who had only good intentions end up in hell? Because he has no clue that there is something called karmic reactions, and even if your intention is to help, certain laws are at work, material laws. And there is this famous case of someone who, like, they tried to save a criminal in order to save the family of the criminal. They, let's say, they sweep the crime under the carpet. They silence the natural machinery of the law that would have been set in motion using their power. And they think they're doing it out of sympathy for the father or the mother of the criminal or whatever, and for that criminal himself. It's so that they are going to take the karmic reaction for blocking the natural process it should have gone through. It's different when, say, a criminal has redeemed himself by doing a certain period of work and is given another chance. That's still very different. But here, when you completely snuff out the crime, nobody knows or that this person actually did a huge crime. Say he did murder, and you just pull the wool over people's eyes. You are putting someone else at risk who may trust that person, and the person may again act like a murderer. So you are going to take the karmic reaction for it, and your intention was always very good, let's say, to help the family and help that criminal. So that's why the material world is set up. It's a very dicey place, and one has to move really very slowly in order negotiated. So now we are going to come to verse 14, which is a crucial verse. It's yeah, do you have verse 14 up?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
I
the
can't.
verse is.
It's very small here. Okay,
Oh, can you
I'm not.
see?
Yeah, I'm not able to do anything to make it go bigger. I mean, because it's at your end, right? It's your. Okay, it's all right. No, I
Okay.
have the book open in front of me, so it's okay.
Okay, one second. Yeah, so I'll just say it. So the purport is this divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is
Yeah.
difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it.
Okay, just taking the first question that comes to mind in that two, three sentence translation is, if the modes are part of material nature, it's understood that they are material.
Hmm.
Then why does he describe them as divine? Devi Yesha Gunamai. Why does he call them this divine energy of mind? Because they basically work under Lord, the Supreme Lord's instructions. They are there like a maidservant to do his bidding and to harass us when we are not surrendered. And they are like the jail keepers whose job it is to put us inside the jail, to keep us inside the jail. We got here in the first place expecting that the jail is a wonderful place to enjoy in. You can roam around in the jail and drink filthy water if you feel like, and spit and yell and do whatever. But fact is, we're inside the jail, we can't get out. And the three modes are there to keep us inside the jail, but they are taking their instructions from the Supreme Lord. In fact, I think if you remember Canto 2, it must be of the Bhagavatam, there is this section where Lord Narada has a vision of the Lord as a result of his austerities. I don't
Hmm.
remember if it is when he is Narada or when he is that when he is that young boy whose mother dies of snake bite and he's left all alone and he keeps on meditating on the Lord and gets a vision of the Lord. I don't remember in which of these births he has this vision, but when he has the vision of the Lord, he actually sees Maya Devi or material nature standing behind the Lord with folded hands.
Hmm.
So the idea is that material nature that really kicks us, and we say this miserable material world and Dukhalaya, it's happening under somebody's control. So then the question arises: so how does the kicking stop once we've surrendered to the Lord? The Maya Devi is still there, as the jail keeper and so on. And the analogy is given by preachers and speakers of, you go to a house, you're trying to get in, their ferocious dog is out there barking at the gate. You dare not get in because it's waiting to attack you or pounce and bite you, and it's snarling. And should you make the mistake of opening the gate, if it is actually unlatched, that's what will happen. But the minute the owner of the dog comes out and says, call it by whatever name, Tommy or Julius or whatever, just come back, come back. The dog becomes tames and goes away. So this
Hmm.
is how actually the kicking stops. That we get kicked and we get sabotaged, we get hurt and so on. But if we please the Lord by our constant attempts to understand things for what they are and to surrender internally more and more, then the Lord just asks those Maya's agents to lay off us. From time to time, there is a testing situation. Oh, real tests keep coming for devotees, no matter what level they are at. But if we remember, and if by then we've already made our mind our friend by regular chanting and by following the process, and by following the process, what we are doing is we are keeping the lower modes at bay. We are not allowing them, we are reducing their control over our lives. That is the whole point in following this process. It is part of the cleansing process. If you do it, then even when a testing time comes, there is something from within that is telling us this will pass, this is what I need to know or do, and I should just be strong and surrender and just take things as they come. The Lord has some better plan for me. He knows me. He's inside and he hears what are my aspirations. And he knows what are my limitations. I can't do certain things. So by then that nice connection has been made, the dial-up connection with the Lord. So even if terrible tests come and setbacks come, we get through it. Okay. So why are the modes divine? Why are they described as divine? In verse 14, Devi Yesha Gunamai, because they are, although they are material, that's why the three modes are considered what comprise material nature. They are basically taking their instructions from the Supreme Lord. And what's he saying here? It's very difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. And again in the Bhagavatam, you must have come across this analogy, this description of how for the surrendered soul, even crossing this nescience or this whole lifetime of ignorance and so many problems becomes as simple as stepping over the water puddle that is
Uh, the hoof of the water puddle of a hoof of a calf or cow.
cow or calf. That's right. That it leaves a little tiny impression, whether it's the calf or the cow. There's a small size, right, to the hoof. I think it's a calf. You're right. So it is even
Hmm.
smaller. And the water inside that, how can it be difficult to cross it? I mean, even with two fingers you can cross. So
Hmm.
it becomes that easy. So that's given really as like to inspire us. That otherwise this world of nations, it's there's trouble waiting at every stage. It's the, I mean, man or woman, nothing is certain, and world is just kind of getting worse and worse. That's all one can say as Kali Yuga is advancing. So it's imperative that this what we do, what he's asking us to do here. And if you see in the purport, it's the different descriptions are given of how this works. Now at the three ropes, etc. Here the purport, I'll just read from that first paragraph of the purport to verse 14 from my book. The Supreme
Okay.
Personality,
Yeah, you can.
yeah, the Supreme Personality
Yeah,
of
go ahead.
God has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine. Well, naturally, because He is divine. Although the living entities are part of the crucial point, as Jiva, we are also made of spirit. We are not matter. So therefore, that spirit ensures us divinity. Then how come we end up in this utterly confused and bewildered stage? Because due to contact with material energy, their original superior power becomes covered. The heart becomes dirty. The mind becomes covered like a clouded mirror. Thus, covered by material energy, one cannot possibly overcome its influence. As previously stated, both the material and spiritual natures are all coming from the Supreme Lord. Jumping one sentence ahead, the living entities belong originally and finally, they belong to the eternal superior nature of the Lord. But due to contamination by the inferior nature, matter, the illusion is also eternal. The conditioned soul is therefore called Nitya Baddha. Lifetime after lifetime, we are coming in this bewildered state or eternally conditioned. No one can trace out the history of his becoming conditioned at a certain date in material history. Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult. Although, mind you, material nature is inferior and the jiva is superior. But just see how the tables have been turned. It's like sometimes you go into families and you see there are parents and there are children. And somehow the child has got the upper hand, small children. So much, the tables have been turned and the parents dare not do anything that basically the child does not like. So similarly, though fundamentally and intrinsically the jiva is superior to material energy, when it comes in contact, material energy is so strong that it completely bewilders and confuses us. Being conducted by divine will, material nature, though inferior, acts so wonderfully in the construction and destruction of the cosmic manifestation. Just to show how the Krishna is like a supreme engineer. The Vedas confirm this, and so on. Yeah. Although Maya or illusion is false or temporary, the background of Maya is in the background of Maya is the supreme magician, the personality of Godhead, who is Maheshwara or the supreme controller. And you see to what extent that people get bewildered. I just give this example because it's public knowledge. And a couple who were in the IAS, both of them got in together. They had studied on some scholarship in Germany. They came back and they sat for the IAS. It's my generation, maybe a little older than me. They both get into the IAS. They pull some ropes and get the same cadre, that is Madhya Pradesh, so that they can be posted everywhere together and continue to live as husband and wife. They go on and have two children. Children are growing up nicely. They have a great position and they have a great salary. There's not enough. Maya has completely covered them so that they are known to be corrupt, both husband and wife. The corruption reaches such standards that find what to such absurd extents that they start buying up or rather receiving material assets, I mean real estate. Now no, their names they can't have anymore. So in the name of a brother and two sisters who are abroad and are not even aware that these things are being purchased in their name or received and registered in their name. All this comes out when, of course, the tax or whichever department is into all this, unearths the huge scandal and makes headlines. Both of them naturally go to jail and spend several years there. And they have misappropriated 44 flats in Madhya Pradesh alone. What are they going to do with 44 flats? I mean, 4 flats, yes. Even if they put all the 44 on the market, which they can't do because the whole thing would become public then. They're misdeeds. What are they going to do with the money? Are they going to eat that money? And if it's just flats, can they string them like the string of pearls and hang them around their neck? And they're already earning fat salaries because as IAS officers. It's not like they're undergoing crucial some treatment that requires lakhs every day. The absurdity, the utter absurdity, and they finished off their career and their life like this. It so happened that this man in this couple, his sister was with me in the UK. So it was public, and we are wondering that poor girl, she's also implicated. It came in the Hindu. The UK police will go to the door of such and such person because her name is mentioned in the assets registered by her brother and sister-in-law. So to what extent the guna or the it, and like I was okay, no, that I will save for later. Next paragraph says that it's also often compared to a rope, the 3 ropes. And like you were saying, all of us are a mixture of these 3 gunas. You correctly pointed out. It's not only that, apparently the 3 ropes then can be subdivided and subdivided in such a way that, meaning so many skeins, like if you take a rope and start separating the skeins or wool, it's so thoroughly are we bound up that we can't think straight, and we do things that implicate us in this whole chain of karmic bad reactions, and we go further and further down. So what is Krishna offering? If we jump that para and go to the next para, the words Mama Eva are very significant. Mama means unto Krishna, unto Vishnu alone, and not Brahma, unto Vishnu, not Brahma or Shiva. Although Brahma and Shiva are gradually elevated,
Greatly elevated.
greatly elevated, and are almost on the level of Vishnu, it's not possible for such incarnations of Rajoguna passion and Tamoguna ignorance to release the conditioned soul from the clutches of Maya. In other words, both Brahma and Shiva are also under the influence of Maya. But that is because they have agreed to play a certain role to keep the bigger picture going. Only Vishnu is the master of Maya, therefore he alone can call Maya back, like the ferocious dog being called away from attacking the visitors by its owner. Only Vishnu is the master of Maya, therefore he alone can give release to the conditioned soul. The Vedas, this is in the Upanishads, confirms this in the phrase Tameva Viditya, or freedom is possible only by understanding Krishna. And here is the verse I referred to earlier. Even Lord Shiva affirms that liberation can be achieved only by the mercy of Vishnu. Lord Shiva says, Mukti Pradata Sarvesham Vishnu Eva na Samsha. There's no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone and not anybody else. So now the question arises, the three modes when they are harassing us, or we come under the influence of one of the lower modes and do things that we later regret. In order to understand how it works, one preacher gave the example of a multiple choice question in which we choose. There are multiple choices set in front of us, but we have to choose the correct answer. So provided we put in the right amount of effort to study for the exam, or we've listened carefully when the teacher has been teaching, we tick, and accordingly we get benefit or we lose benefit. So the choices are always laid out in front of us, and in order to be able to choose the right the right answer, you have to constantly educate ourselves. We have to, like, you're coming up with so many examples from the Bhagavatam. Why are these examples given? So they tell us what is the highest and the best response to give in a situation. It's we you gave the example of Lord Shiva not taking offense. Lord Shiva, seeing though he is himself such an elevated individual, not taking seeing the greatness of Vaishnavas, who are always merciful and compassionate, willing to give everybody a chance. And the idea behind all these kicks and slaps that we get at the hands of Maya Devi, or this multiple choice question that we repeatedly fail, maybe because we were ignorant, we didn't know better, we didn't know that what we are doing is wrong. Nobody bothered to tell us, or if they bothered to tell us, we never listened. But we still pay even for that. So these heinous situations that are inflicted on us, like whipping, the ultimate intention is basically to purify us and to increase our longing to be free, and to understand what is the process by which one can get free. Free of two things. One is, of course, finally and ultimately and eternally to be free from the cycle of rebirth in this world. But since that is still a faraway goal to be accomplished, how to be free from suffering, although it is happening to us. Because mentally, in the mind, if things are sorted out. And here I can tell you, I think it's in one of these sections. Yes, correct. Yeah, it's crucial. I was wrong to jump it. That para in the purport to verse 14, which starts by another meaning of guna, is rope. Would you like to read it? Because he's saying something
Yeah,
very
yeah.
yeah.
So it's another meaning of guna is rope. It is to be
Yeah.
understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. A man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. He must be held by a person who is unbound, because the bound cannot help the bound. The rescuer must be liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. Without such superior help, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. Devotional service or Krishna consciousness can help one gain such release. Krishna, being the lord of the illusory energy, can order this insurmountable energy to release the conditioned soul. He orders this release out of his causeless mercy on the surrendered soul, and out of his paternal affection for the living entity, who was originally a beloved son of the Lord. Therefore, surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is the only means to get free from the clutches of the stringent material nature.
Okay, now what we must understand, I think, here is two things. One is this very commonsensical point that if we are ourselves bound and tied up, I mean, it's even like when people come, robbers come and tie up two occupants in order to rob. Naturally, unless someone else comes to and muffle or muzzle them, yeah, that's right, they stuff. kerchief into the mouths of the victims and then tie them up. Unless someone else comes from outside and cuts the ropes or unties them, they can't get free. So similarly, for us to come out of the clutches of Maya, it has to be Krishna or his representatives, which is a guru. And down the line, the guru has trained so many other disciples so that they can help in the process. The other crucial point, just as we said, surrender can happen ideally in the case of a pure devotee at one shot. There is again, I'm forgetting the name of that king, so I won't refer to that from the Bhagavatam. But anyway, so no, similarly, but for most of us, surrender is a process. We repeatedly make choices and we learn to make the right choice, and rather we learn to make a series of choice in a series of situations we find ourselves in over a long period of time, and each of these choices we learn more and more that it will bring us closer to Krishna and his instructions and not take us away. That means we are rebelling less and we are submitting and surrendering more. Similarly, being freed from the clutches of Maya is a process. It's not that one fine day suddenly we get up and we find the ropes are gone. It's a process. And I can say one thing, that my Shiksha Guru, as I've mentioned earlier, Purnachandra Swami, he's been dead and gone for 10 years now, 12 years. He passed away in 2010 at a young age when he was in his mid 50s of a serious disease. But in the limited interaction I had with him, and but it was that interaction was extremely valuable. Even today, even this morning, I remember some of the things that he's taught me, and one of them is he used to say, whenever you're up against some negative feeling, say you just don't feel up to facing the day, you don't feel like doing what you're supposed to do, or you just don't feel up to doing, yeah, like a duty or some task, that don't pay attention, because don't trust your feelings. He made this comment when we were all like we were parked together in Govardhan for 1 month of
Hmm.
Kartik, and I had lot of service. In some situation, he said, "No, never trust your feelings." So we were very puzzled. This is like it came like something very slashing and cutting. It was not his nature to be like that. Why never trust it? Because feelings come and go. You can't
Hmm.
trust this. 1 minute you feel something, and I find it to be so true. When, like as I said, I have to get into the kitchen and get the idli and chutney ready for my mom by a certain time. Maid will come only much later. I just don't feel. At least today, I don't trust it, because the minute you learn
Uh,
to not trust it and just do what's done, life becomes much simpler.
Actually, what happens is that like when you constantly like if you get into the scriptures and you constantly read the Bhagavatam or the Gita, what
Yeah.
will happen is that like after a certain point, without you realizing, it's like you start taking things very objectively, and you the
Mm.
all the things that in normal situations you would look at things very subjectively, and that's where the feelings come in. Like you realize like, okay, I don't want to do this because of this. You have there's a reason why you don't want to do it. But then when you listen to the whole Bhagavatam, the constant message that keeps coming again and again is that everything is temporary. Your ego, like that thing somewhere in the Bhagavatam it describes there are 28 personalities of God, which is like like you got the material modes, which is three. You got the false ego. You got
The element. Yeah,
the
yeah, the elements.
elements, and all these
Five
different things are
senses.
there.
Yeah,
Five.
the five.
It
The
comes up
ten
to it
senses,
comes up
five sense objects. Correct.
yeah, it comes to sense, yeah, the nine elements and the sense of perception, five, yeah, whatever. But basically, it comes up to like around 28.
Right.
And so it's like these are all like personalities. So it's like these are all personalities of like God, essentially. These are all personalities that of the Supreme Personality of God. And they continuously make the point that these feelings that you have or these emotions that you have are all temporary, like you said. So what is the need to worry about what's going to happen? So when you think, like when you constantly get that message all the time, what
Mm.
actually is happening is that you start thinking objectively. You
Mm.
start taking things like you look at everything like, okay, but objectively, like if I do this, then I'll be able to, I'll get this or I'll be able. So without you realizing, you become like objective, and and you actually don't discriminate against things around you and all that stuff. So I think
The
that's the difference.
I think,
That's the
yeah, thanks.
difference.
Thank you. I think the subjective objective is a very good. These two words that you've like put across, it's really very good,
Mm.
because it's when we are subjective that we are more and more under the influence of our mind and what it's telling us to do or not do, and unnecessarily become unhappy and lament and then just do
It's
something.
it's
Yeah,
it's
it's
sometimes it's good because like you develop that feeling of sometimes it's good to it's also good to discriminate sometimes, when something bad is going on, it
I
helps
agree.
in understanding what is good and bad.
I
So that's
agree.
also important.
I
But
agree.
that
Yeah,
objectivity that is what helps you push forward, and it can helps you to do things like, and
right.
not stay in one place like that. I think that's the maybe that's what he was trying to say, maybe.
Right. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Because the feelings have their place. Like you say, something bad is going on. You just feel you don't want to be part of it. You don't. It doesn't feel right. In those situations, one must trust one's basic instinct and feelings, 100%. But what he meant is the feelings that just come and go and make you feel unnecessarily confused and bewildered. It's the modes working. One of the lower modes comes and just says, "Why do you want to again make the idli chutney for the umpteenth day?" But there is no one else to do it at that time. I can do without it, but say the person dependent on me, she's elderly, she no longer can do it. Earlier she used to do it. Maid won't get here till about say 9:30 or 10. So this is 100%. I agree that in these situations one must just be objective. What needs to be done, one must just do it. And later when you look back, what was so difficult about it for me to start having doubts? Nothing. It was just the mind tricking us. So then, just one other point. Um, Someone once asked in these commentaries, why do we have so many different commentaries? And if anyway, Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya and Shankaracharya have given us commentaries to even the Bhagavad Gita in their times. This we're talking about different centuries. Ramanujacharya, I know, is 10th century, and Shankaracharya and Madhvacharya is later, 12th or later. Shankaracharya earlier, as far as I know. So, if since these commentaries are there on the Bhagavad Gita, why do we again need, for example, Srila Prabhupada's or so many others? It's because, and this answer was given, they are basically saying the same thing about the same verses, because the Bhagavad Gita verses can't be changed. It's just that they're throwing new light on it. It's because Maya has a trick of constantly updating herself. Like software gets updated, Maya keeps updating herself and the kind of techniques and tactics she develops to capture us. So a commentator in a particular age, he knows what is the maximum challenging situation for the people of his times, and therefore he writes that kind of commentary which will resonate with them. Now, someone writing, say, in the early part of the century, would have been writing about, for them, the major worrying factor, at least on the Western Front, was the Russian Empire was collapsing, the First World War was about to happen. But if someone writes at the end of the last century, the First World War happened, the Second World War happened, so those are not big things, it's all behind us. It's not such a pressing challenge for the ordinary condition. So a commentator has to write in such a way that it resonates with the public of that time. And although commentaries are useful no matter which century they were written in, we usually say, "Oh, I really like that lecture, because he or she made that particular, he gave the particular example, everything became clear." So that is why, because Maya Devi is constantly updating her software to capture us in new. Whoever thought this mobile phone would exist 10 years, 20 years ago, we never knew what a mobile phone was. Computers were in. Now there's a mobile phone in everyone's hand. Every child is bombarded if he presses by some mistake, or if there has internet on that phone, offers of gambling. I don't know what it's called, but these sites keep opening up where of someone who became very rich very fast. Of course, the
Yeah.
child may not have a credit card and access to his parents' credit card, hopefully not. But all pornography, you name it, they have it. So every age or every time has a its own challenges, and it is the, just 1 minute, just hold on. I think it is the
Yeah, yeah, sure.
video call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Supriya Chechi is somebody's
Yeah,
I think come to a place.
yeah. So shall we? It's okay.
Yeah,
No, so I wanted actually to end on this note because there's someone
yeah,
coming.
sure, sure.
Yeah, it's past
Yeah,
one and
not a problem. No problem, no problem, no problem. So we can continue the next.
yeah,
I think the
sure.
same chapter we'll continue. Like we have to finish the remaining
Yeah,
chapter.
sure. Yeah, and in fact, verses 15 and 16 are crucial, and they give you a whole lot of new information and categories where even we can see why some people don't turn and why some of us did turn to the spiritual path. It's very enlightening, the next two verses. Okay, so
Okay.
we'll catch up again. We'll stop the recording now
All
and
right.
we'll catch up next class.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you, Supriya Chechi.
okay.